The late afternoon sun cast a honey glow over the neighborhood, stretching long shadows across cracked sidewalks and gently rustling the leaves of the old oaks that lined the narrow street. The buildings stood shoulder to shoulder like old friends sharing secrets, their facades faded but full of character. This was the world Mia knew, a place where screen doors creaked open with laughter, where neighbors exchanged greetings over laundry lines, and where joy found a way to bloom even in the tightest spaces. Mia skipped along the pavement, her backpack bouncing against her back, curls springing with each step. Her face was radiant, lit by a kind of inner sunshine that neither hardship nor noise could dim. She waved at Mr. Jamal, the florist who always let her smell the roses, and gave a high five to Jordan, the middle schooler who ran the corner lemonade stand in summer. With each step, she made the world feel a little warmer. Angela, her mother, was still at work, likely on her second shift at the diner downtown. Wrists sore and eyes heavy, but heart always full when it came to Mia. Their apartment might have been small, but it was alive with stories, drawings taped on the fridge, socks that never matched, and a ritual of hugs before bedtime that felt like magic spells against the world outside. The park was just a few blocks away, a patch of green, tucked like a secret between rows of old brick buildings. Mia loved it, the slide that squeaked when you went too fast, the tire swing that spun like a lazy planet, and the sandbox that was always a kingdom in her mind. She made her way there now, humming a song she'd made up in music class. When she spotted him, he was sitting on a weather-worn bench near the swings, hunched like someone trying to fold himself small. His clothes were layered, baggy, and patched, his beard wild and peppered with gray. His hands were cupped in his lap, fingers twitching slightly, and his gaze was fixed on a spot just past his scuffed shoes. Mia slowed, watching from a distance. There was something about him that tugged at her chest, not fear, but a kind of ache. The kind you feel when you see someone left out in the cold. A loud rumble cut through the quiet. It was his stomach. Mia blinked. She reached into her backpack and pulled out the sandwich her mother had made that morning, peanut butter and jelly, her favorite. The bread was soft, the jelly just a little messy at the edges. She looked at it, then at the man, and her decision was immediate. She walked up slowly, feet crunching softly on the gravel path. "Excuse me, sir," she said, voice gentle and curious. The man looked up, startled. His eyes were pale blue, rimmed with red and tired, but when they met Mia's, something softened. "Yes, little one," he said, his voice raspy from disuse. "I thought you might be hungry," she said, holding the sandwich out with both hands. "You can have this. I already had lunch at school." He stared at her, blinking like he wasn't sure she was real. Then, cautiously, he took the sandwich. His hands trembled slightly. "Thank you," he said, and his voice cracked like dry leaves underfoot. "That's very kind of you." Mia beamed. "My mom says sharing is caring." He gave a soft chuckle, the kind that sounded like it hadn't been used in a while. "Your mom's a wise woman." "I'm Mia," she said, sitting beside him, her feet swinging above the ground. He nodded, as if committing the name to memory. "I'm John." They sat in silence for a moment as he unwrapped the sandwich with reverence, like it was a gift and not just bread and jam. Mia watched him eat, smiling quietly as if she'd done something as ordinary as tying her shoes. But John's eyes glistened. He didn't say much more, but Mia didn't need him to. She'd given what she had, and in that moment, it was everything. Neither of them could have known how much that simple sandwich would change the course of their lives. The next morning dawned crisp and golden, sunlight spilling through the gauzy curtains of their apartment like a blessing. Mia stirred under her blanket, still cocooned in dreams, a faint smile on her face. In the kitchen, Angela moved through, the quiet like clockwork, pouring oatmeal into a pot, packing Mia's lunch, tying her apron like she did every morning before work. But something about today felt different. She glanced at the sandwich waiting on the counter. Peanut butter and jelly, again, Mia's favorite. Angela's hand hovered over it, and for a moment, she hesitated. A strange weight pressed at her chest, nothing she could name, but heavy nonetheless. "Mama," Mia yawned from the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Can I bring the sandwiches today, just in case?" Angela turned, surprised. "Two?" Mia nodded sleepily. "One for me, one for John, just in case he's hungry again." Angela's heart squeezed, a familiar ache rising in her throat. She wanted to say yes, but memories of the stranger's worn clothes and the sadness in his eyes gave her pause. She had spent half the night worrying over that encounter, grateful Her daughter was safe, but uneasy with how naturally she had befriended a man neither of them truly knew. She knelt in front of Mia and cupped her face. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "I'm so proud of what you did yesterday, but sometimes people aren't always what they seem. John might be kind, but he's also a stranger, and we have to be careful, even when we want to help." Mia's smile faltered slightly, and she looked down. "But he was nice." "He looked lonely," Angela sighed. "I know, baby, but let's just wait. If we see him again, we'll find a way to help together." Mia nodded, slowly accepting the compromise. Angela kissed her forehead, tucked the single sandwich into her backpack, and tried to brush away the unease still clinging to her thoughts. By the time they returned home that evening, the day had returned to its usual rhythm: school, work, homework, dinner, normalcy, routine. It felt like yesterday's moment in the park had already begun fading into memory. Until the knock came. It was sharp and sudden, 3 deliberate raps at the door. Angela, in the middle of washing dishes, froze. Mia looked up from her coloring book on the floor. "Mommy," she whispered. Angela wiped her hands quickly and approached the door. Her instincts prickled. The knock was too firm to be a neighbor, too direct to be casual. She opened the door slowly, and her breath caught. 2 men stood there, one tall and broad with dark, cropped hair and a badge glinting from his belt. The other, leaner, older, his expression unreadable. Police officers. The kind you don't expect to see unless something's wrong. "Good evening, ma'am," the taller one said, voice calm but commanding. "I'm Officer Denton. This is Officer Reyes. Are you Angela Thompson?" "Yes," Angela said carefully, her voice tight. "Is something wrong? We'd like to speak with you and your daughter," Reyes added, his eyes flicking inside the apartment. "It's regarding a man who was seen in the park yesterday afternoon." Angela's pulse thundered in her ears. Her eyes darted to Mia, who was now standing, her crayon clutched midair, frozen in place. "Can we come in?" Denton asked. Angela hesitated for a split second, but the presence of the uniforms, the sudden knot in her gut, none of it felt optional. She stepped aside. The officers entered quietly, respectfully. Angela gestured toward the living room, and they all sat. Mia curling into her mother's side, eyes wide. "Mia," Officer Reyes began softly, "do you remember a man you met yesterday in the park? His name might have been John." Mia nodded, slowly. "He was hungry. I gave him my sandwich." Angela squeezed her hand gently. The room felt like it had swallowed all the air. "That was very kind of you," Denton said, giving a small smile. "You did a good thing, but we need to ask you more about him. What did he say to you? Did he seem confused? Did he tell you where he lived?" Mia shook her head. "No. He just said thank you. He looked really tired." Angela spoke up, her voice edged with nerves. "Officers, please. What is this about?" Reyes exchanged a glance with Denton, then leaned forward, his tone low and serious. "That man John was found unconscious in the park late last night. Someone called it in. He's in the hospital now. We're trying to piece together what happened to him before he collapsed." Angela felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. Her mind reeled. Hospital, unconscious, and her little girl had been alone with him just hours before. Mia's voice was barely a whisper. Is he gonna die?" "No, sweetie," Reyes said quickly, his expression softening. "The doctors are taking care of him, but he didn't have any ID. He's not saying much, and what you told him yesterday, it might help him. You might be the key to figuring out who he really is." Angela blinked. "You mean, he's not just homeless? We don't know who he is at all?" Denton replied, "But something about your daughter's kindness had stayed with him. When we mentioned her, he seemed calmer. He asked for the little girl with the sandwich." The room went still. Angela stared at the officers, torn between awe and unease. What had Mia's act of kindness stirred up in this stranger? And what would happen now that the world was beginning to pay attention? Outside, night had crept over the city, casting long shadows over the streets. But inside their small apartment, something much larger had begun to unfold, a mystery, a revelation, and a story that was far from over. That night, after the officers left, Angela sat motionless on the couch long after Mia had fallen asleep. The apartment, normally so full of warmth and gentle domestic noise, Mia's humming, the squeak of the bathroom tap, the soft thud of Angela's footsteps had become oppressively quiet. She could hear the ticking of the clock in the kitchen, every second stretching longer than the last. A homeless man had collapsed in the same park her daughter played in. A man who now lay in a hospital bed, nameless and alone, and somehow her 8-year-old daughter had been the last person he connected with his final thread. Before slipping into unconsciousness, Angela's thoughts spiraled. What if something had happened while Mia was with him? What if he hadn't been kind? What if the sandwich hadn't been enough? She gripped her mug of lukewarm tea tighter. Trying to ground herself, the police had said Mia did something good, something pure. But why did it feel like they were teetering on the edge of something bigger? When morning broke, it brought no relief. The sky was gray, the clouds bloated with unshed rain. Angela walked Mia to school, her hand clenched tightly around her daughter's. She watched every face that passed them to aware, to alert. She felt exposed, like their small lives were being studied by eyes she couldn't see. The whispers had started. It began with Mrs. Gonzalez on the 3rd floor, who eyed them with forced sympathy as she carried her laundry down the hall. Poor child, she murmured under her breath, not quietly enough, involved in something like that. At the corner store, Mr. Chun, normally jovial, leaned across the counter with a furrowed brow. Everything okay, Angela? Saw the police here again. Heard there was trouble at the park. Angela nodded quickly, muttered something about misunderstandings, and rushed out before the questions multiplied. But she could feel it, that shift in the air when curiosity turns to suspicion. By the time she returned home, her phone was buzzing. A known number. She hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Thompson, a calm, professional voice asked. This is Dr. Rachel Lynn. I'm the attending physician overseeing the patient you knew as John. Angela's stomach clenched. Yes, is he? He's stable, Dr. Lynn said, but still recovering. We wanted to speak with you. He's been asking for your daughter by name. Angela's heart stuttered. Why, what does he want? Dr. Lynn hesitated. That's part of what we're trying to understand. Something about his interaction with Mia seems to have triggered memory. Angela blinked. You mean, he's starting to remember? Yes. Not much, not clearly, but fragments, names, smells, emotions, and something odd, Dr. Lynn added, her voice lowering slightly. When we examined him, we discovered something. Angela sat down slowly. What? His belongings were practically non-existent, but hidden in his coat lining, tucked in like someone was trying to keep it safe, we found a locket. Inside, a photo of a young girl, maybe 8, 9 years old. She looked like Mia. Angela's breath caught. Wait, what are you saying? I'm not saying anything definitively, Dr. Lynn replied. But this isn't random. We'd like you to come to the hospital. Maybe seeing you both can help him piece things together. Angela gripped the phone so hard her knuckles whitened. 1,000 questions screamed in her mind, but only one made. It passed her lips. What if this man isn't just some stranger? At the hospital, the air smelled of antiseptic and static. The walls were too white, the fluorescent lights too bright. Mia clutched her mother's hand, her eyes wide as they moved through the corridors. Room 308. Angela knocked lightly, then pushed the door open. Jonathan. The nurses now called him, sat up in bed. He looked cleaner, though still pale, his eyes sunken, but more alert than before. When he saw Mia, something shifted in his face. The hollowness cracked. You came back, he whispered, his voice thin. Mia smiled shyly. Hi, John. He reached slowly toward his nightstand and picked up the locket. Hands shaking, he opened it and showed it to her. Do you know this girl? Angela leaned closer. Her breath hitched. It wasn't Mia, but it looked like her. Same curls, same warm eyes, same age. There was something uncanny about it, something unsettling. That's not her, Angela said. But it could be. Jonathan nodded, eyes glazed with confusion. I thought she was. I wasn't sure. I remembered her face when she gave me the sandwich. It unlocked something, not a memory, exactly, more like a feeling, a sound. Someone calling me Uncle John. Angela blinked. Uncle. He turned toward her slowly. I think I had a niece, or someone I was supposed to protect, but I failed. Silence descended like a weight. I was running from something, he whispered. I don't remember what, but I was trying to get away, and I think I lost someone important. Angela's heart pounded. This was no longer a story about a stranger in the park. This was something deeper. Mia's kindness hadn't just helped a man, it had set off a spark, and whatever it was lighting up, it was big, too big to ignore. Angela had never liked the smell of hospitals. The sterile scent like bleach soaked in loneliness clung to her skin even after they left. As she and Mia exited through the sliding glass doors of Mercy General, the wind slapped them in the face with a cold gust. As if the city itself had shifted since they arrived, Mia was quiet, holding Angela's hand tighter than usual. The locket, the one Jonathan had clutched like a lifeline, was now burned into Angela's memory. That child's face, so eerily like Mia's, but not Mia. Not quite. The same night, Angela sat up in bed long after Mia had fallen asleep, staring at the ceiling, replaying Jonathan's voice over and over in her mind. She called me Uncle John. I was trying to get away. I lost someone. What had he been running from, and who had he lost? A knock on the front door the next morning brought a fresh twist of dread. When Angela opened it, she expected more police, but instead, it was a sharply dressed woman holding a leather-bound folder, flanked by a cameraman adjusting his lens. "Angela Thompson," the woman asked. "I'm Renee Voss. Channel 9 News. We've been following the story about your daughter and the unidentified man she helped in the park." Angela froze. "How did you?" "It's a small city," Renee said, already stepping slightly into the doorway. "Police chatter, hospital sources, and, frankly, your daughter's story is incredible. A child shows kindness to a homeless stranger, only to help trigger his identity return. It's the kind of story people need right now." Angela's gut churned. "We're not interested in publicity." Renee smiled tightly. "But the world is interested in you, especially in Mia." Behind her, the cameraman powered up his rig. "Please," Angela said firmly. "We're not doing this." She shut the door before they could protest. Her hands were shaking. It wasn't just neighbors whispering anymore. This was becoming something else, something beyond her control. That evening, while Mia colored quietly at the table, Angela received another call. This time, it wasn't a reporter. It was a man claiming to be Edward Caldwell. "My name probably doesn't mean much to you," he said politely, "but the man your daughter helped, Jonathan, is my brother." Angela went still. "Brother?" "Yes. He disappeared over a year ago. We've been searching everywhere, hospitals, shelters, even hired private investigators. And then, your daughter found him. Or rather, he found her." Angela's voice trembled. "What happened to him?" "We're still piecing it together. Trauma, memory loss. But now he remembers bits of home." He remembered her. And he remembered something else. Angela's heart thudded. "He says he was trying to protect someone. A little girl. From something terrible." Angela felt her breath stop. Edward continued, more carefully now. "My brother worked for people. Dangerous people. Financial crimes. Things went wrong. He was targeted. His family too. He tried to disappear. To protect them. We thought he was dead." Silence. "I'm flying in tomorrow," Edward said. "I'd like to meet you and Mia, if that's okay." Angela hung up without giving an answer. She stared at her reflection in the darkened kitchen window. She no longer recognized the woman staring back. The next day unfolded in strange silence. Mia was giddy, unaware of the undercurrents her mother was drowning in. Angela walked her to school and felt eyes on them, cars that lingered along as stop signs. Passersby with phones not so covertly pointed in their direction. Had someone leaked the story? By afternoon, it was no longer a whisper, it was viral. Mystery girl reunites family with missing man. Homeless stranger turns out to be Wall Street whistleblower. Mia's miracle. The child who helped. A man remembered his life. Angela stared at the headlines on her phone with disbelief. Her daughter's face smiling. Innocent was everywhere. She called the police station. Demanded answers. They apologized. Said it must have come from the hospital, or the media, or someone else who'd heard the story. But the truth was, she couldn't stop it now. When she picked Mia up from school, she found her in tears. A boy had called her the homeless whisperer. Another girl said she was famous like on TikTok. Even Mia's teacher looked at her differently. "I didn't mean to be famous." Mia sobbed into Angela's arms. "I just wanted to help." Angela knelt and held her daughter tight. "I know, baby," she whispered. "But sometimes doing the right thing makes a bigger noise than you expect." That evening, they met Edward Caldwell in a hotel suite uptown. He was calm, composed, and far the polished for Angela's liking. But when he saw Mia, his eyes filled with something that softened the edges of his perfect posture. "She looks like her," he murmured. "My niece, Jonathan's daughter." Angela blinked. "His daughter?" Edward nodded. "Her name was Lucy. She disappeared with John. We thought they were both gone." Angela's breath caught in her throat. "Is she? We don't know, Edward said. But John's fragments of memory suggest he tried to hide her, to protect her, and then something went wrong. He handed Angela a photo. The girl in it had curly hair, warm eyes. She looked exactly like Mia might in a different world. It sent chills up Angela's spine. Mia might be the key, Edward said, to finding Lucy, to unlocking John's memories, and to uncovering the truth of what happened. Angela's world tilted. Her daughter was not just the girl with the sandwich anymore. She was the spark in a storm that had barely begun. The air in the hotel suite turned still after Edward's words hung in the space like smoke. She looked like her. Angela could barely breathe. Mia stood near the window, staring down at the city below, unaware that her world already shifting was now on the edge of collapse. Angela didn't know whether to scream, cry, or simply take her daughter and run. Lucy, Jonathan's daughter, missing, and Mia, a mirror image, the locket, the memory flashes, the broken fragments Jonathan clung to like glass shards. Angela turned to Edward, her voice low but steady. Are you saying you think Mia is your niece? Edward blinked. No, I don't think she is, but I think she reminds John of Lucy, her energy, her face, her compassion. He paused. But that's why she's important. Important. Angela hated the word in that moment. Mia was not important. Mia was 8, a little girl who just wanted to share her sandwich and spread kindness, not someone to be weaponized by a stranger's trauma or a family's desperation. Why? Are you really here? She asked, folding her arms. Edward sighed and walked to a small table where a manila envelope waited. He slid it across to her. Angela stared at it, but didn't touch it. Inside were records, photos, documents, journal entries. We hired someone to track John after he vanished. Eventually we gave up, assumed the worst, but we had suspicions once. We couldn't prove my brother wasn't just disappearing for no reason. Angela slowly opened the envelope and sifted through the contents. There were photos of Jonathan before, smiling, clean-shaven, in boardrooms and on yachts. But there were also clippings, headlines she vaguely remembered but had never paid attention to. Insider allegations surface against Apex Capital Partners. Whistleblower goes missing weeks before scheduled grand jury testimony. FBI investigates links between Apex execs and criminal syndicates. Angela stared at Edward, stunned. Your brother was a whistleblower? Edward nodded grimly. He uncovered money laundering, billions, and the men he was exposing were dangerous. Private security, foreign investors, people who make others disappear for a living. Angela's pulse pounded. And you think he fled with his daughter? We think so. He tried to disappear to protect her. Then something happened. His mind snapped. His memories broke. He became a ghost, hiding in plain sight. Angela thought of Jonathan sitting on the park bench, broken, empty, searching for something he didn't even know he'd lost. And you think seeing Mia brought it all back? Something about her. It cracked the wall in his mind. Angela shook her head. You're asking me to let my daughter get involved in something she doesn't even understand. I'm asking you to help us find a missing child, Edward said quietly, and maybe bring John back from wherever he's still lost. Just then, the suite door opened again. And Jonathan walked in. Angela barely recognized him. He looked stronger, more grounded, still pale, still weary, but there was something behind his eyes now. Something awake. His gaze swept the room and landed on Mia. Hello again, he said, his voice hoarse but soft. Mia turned from the window. Hi, John, she said shyly. Jonathan smiled, then knelt to her level. He took a deep breath, as if steadying himself on something fragile. I remembered something else. Angela stepped forward quickly, protective. Jonathan looked up at her, eyes wet. There was a fire. He whispered, a cabin. I had Lucy with me. We were hiding, and then someone found us. Angela's breath hitched. I told her to run. I told her to hide in the woods. I drew them away. I never saw her again. He shook his head, hands trembling. I've been living in that moment over and over. But I couldn't remember her face until yesterday, until Mia. Angela was frozen, heart thudding like a war drum. I think, he said slowly, she might still be alive. The next morning, Mia woke to the sound of her mom pacing the apartment floor. Phone to her ear. The city outside was already buzzing. News trucks were parked near the building. Paparazzi now waited outside her school. The story had exploded. She was being called the memory child. But Angela didn't care about headlines anymore. She was on the phone with a lawyer, then the police, then the FBI. By the end of the day, her apartment became a revolving door for people in dark suits, agents in plain clothes, and officers carrying files thicker than bricks. Jonathan had signed a sworn statement, and suddenly his broken memories were evidence in a case the government had long buried. There were surveillance records, bank transfers, shell companies, and a single old photograph and aerial shot from a decommissioned Ranger drone of a small figure running through the woods near a scorched cabin. Dated 9 months ago. Angela stared at it, heart in her throat. It was blurry, but the outline, it was a child. Mia wasn't in school the next day. Angela pulled her close in the apartment, whispering truths as gently as she could. Baby, you're not in trouble, but we're going to stay home for a while. There are people we don't know watching, and I need to keep you safe. Is John okay? Mia asked. Angela nodded. He's remembering, because of you. Is the little girl okay? Angela paused. I hope so, she said. We're going to find out. And as she said the words, she realized they were no longer just surviving, they were fighting back. They were being watched. Angela could feel its subtle shifts in the rhythm of her street. The same black SUV parked 2 blocks down for 3 days straight. A man in a baseball cap pretending to fix his phone outside their building. Even the delivery guy with too many packages asking too many questions. The city was loud, but danger had a way of moving in silence, and yet the quiet now carried more than fear, it carried purpose. Angela had stopped answering reporters, stopped replying to text messages from curious neighbors and social media supporters. She had traded their small, chaotic life for something far more complex, a mission to uncover the truth and bring a little girl named Lucy home. Mia never asked to be the center of it all, but she wore the weight with a grace that Angela both admired and feared. She would find her curled up in bed reading through the printouts from the FBI team blurred photos, maps, and Jonathan's fragmented journals. One entry was scrawled in shaky writing and circled in red ink. She ran west. Cabin ruins. Hidden Creek. Her shoes were pink. Mia had looked up that night and asked, "Do you think Lucy lost her shoes in the woods?" Angela couldn't answer, because she didn't know if Lucy had made it out of those woods at all. But then everything changed. 3 weeks after Jonathan's memories began to return, a break came. A woman in rural Vermont working at a roadside diner near the Appalachian Trail called a hotline tip line that had been reactivated by the FBI. "I saw your girl," she said. She didn't say her name, but she had a pink hair clip, slept behind our dumpster, and gave her sandwich to a stray dog. "Sweetest little thing I ever saw," said her daddy told her to keep running. Jonathan confirmed the hair clip. It had belonged to Lucy's mother within 48 hours. A search unit swept the area. What they found stopped everyone cold. A campsite, crude but lived in, old toys, a soggy children's book, torn shoes pink, and inside a makeshift shelter of tarps and branches, a name carved into the inside of a lunchbox in shaky, blocky letters, Lucy. Angela wept when she saw the photo. So did Jonathan. When they brought Lucy in, she was cautious, silent, feral, but alive. 8 years old, barely speaking, skin pale from the little sunlight, hair tangled, eyes wild but bright. She clung to a stuffed sock she had named Bobo and refused to let go of anyone, except the female ranger who found her. Jonathan collapsed when he saw her. He held her like a man anchoring himself to reality, whispering, I'm so sorry, again and again. But Lucy didn't speak, not at first. She only looked across the room and pointed to Mia. Angela's heart stopped. Mia stood beside her, calm and steady. Lucy walked over, slow and deliberate, sock doll in hand. She stared at Mia like she had seen her before in a dream, a memory, a wish. You're the sandwich girl, Lucy whispered. Angela's hand flew to her mouth. How do you know that? She choked out. Lucy blinked. I saw you when I was hiding. I was behind the trees near the park. Daddy was on the bench. You gave him the sandwich. Then you smiled. I thought you were an angel. Angela's legs buckled. Mia just stepped forward and took Lucy's hand. That was the first time Lucy didn't flinch at someone's touch. The days that followed moved like thunder. The media frenzy returned tenfold. Girl missing for over a year found alive thanks to Sandwich Angel. But this time, the spotlight wasn't just noise, it was power. Jonathan's sworn testimony cracked open sealed court files. The names he remembered matched key apex capital executives, men who had since vanished into gated compounds, Swiss accounts, and fake foundations. Angela found herself testifying before investigators, then before reporters, and finally before the Department of Justice. She watched the web unfold: laundering, bribery, offshore trafficking, and more tangled so deeply that only something as pure as Mia's kindness could have broken through. The entire scandal was dubbed the Lucy Ledger, but through it all, Mia remained herself. She didn't understand the global implications. She only knew that she had helped someone, that Lucy smiled now, that Jonathan laughed more, and that their small apartment, once filled with bedtime stories and quiet prayers, was now visited by survivors, advocates, and kids who wanted to help like she had. Months later, on the steps of City Hall, the mayor stood with Mia beside her. Today, she announced, "We honor not just a heroic act, but a reminder to us all that kindness is power, that innocence can disrupt corruption, and that a peanut butter and jelly sandwich may have done more than the courts ever could." Applause thundered through the crowd. Mia looked out at the people. She spotted Lucy in the front row, sitting with Jonathan and Edward. Angela stood beside her, holding back tears. And then the mayor lifted a sheet and read aloud, "By unanimous vote, we are proud to establish the Mia Thompson Foundation for Compassion and Protection of the Vulnerable, created in honor of one little girl's brave heart and the many children still waiting to be found." Mia stepped up to the microphone. She paused, then said softly, "I didn't mean to change the world. I just didn't want John to be hungry. But maybe, if we all do one small kind thing, the world can change on its own." The crowd fell silent. Then someone clapped. And then everyone did. That night, back in their apartment, Mia curled up beside Angela, tired from the excitement. "Mama," she whispered. Double quotes, "Yes, baby, do you think Lucy will be okay now?" Angela kissed her forehead. "She will be, because she has you, and because she's home." Mia smiled, already drifting off. Her breathing slowed. Angela looked at the moonlight filtering through the blinds, casting gentle patterns on the wall. Their lives had been turned inside out, but they had turned the world with it. All because one little girl saw a man on a bench and decided to give him her sandwich.